Okay, I've been starting for a while now.
All right, so you don't actually film me asking him the questions. Okay, so what was your greatest moment in the wrestling business?
My greatest moment in the wrestling business. I think it was when I was 18 years old. It was June the 6th. I just graduated from high school, and I knew I had my first booking 2 days later. And believe it or not, nothing since then has topped that moment when I got in the ring and wrestled a match, got paid, took a shower, and I thought to myself, I feel like a boy in a man's world, but my God, I'm here. And I said, no matter what happens to me in my life, good or bad, this was a moment that I can say. And it was in Aurora, Illinois. I wrestled Freddie Rogers. And I tell you what, you can't beat that. It's so hard to get a break, to get started. I'm just lucky that my father was Emil Poffo, and I didn't have to go to some stupid wrestling school where they don't love you, they love your money. And they just see you as a mark coming into a room. And, it took me a while to look the part, to put on some weight and do some stuff. But looking back all those years ago, I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'm so lucky to have been a wrestler.
So you were trained by your dad, and what was his training like when he was training you?
Well, he took what was my dad's training like? He took the big picture. He says, some people get into wrestling for different reasons. Just remember, it's not what you make, it's what you save, it's what you keep, and it's what grows. And the definition of financially stable, financial independence, it's not $1 million or $5 million or a certain number. It's, does your passive income support your lifestyle? In other words, if you never get out of bed, are you making enough money on interest so that you can exist? And he taught me the difference between luxuries and necessities. And food is a luxury. Food is not a luxury, it's a necessity. But tattoos are a luxury. And every time I see a guy, I need money. Yeah, but he had enough money for tattoos, didn't he? And piercings. In other words, there's a priority that's all out of whack. That's what my dad taught me about the business, and also the fact that be careful as an independent contractor, they don't take the tax money out like in a real job. They, at the end of the year, you pay your taxes. That's why Ric Flair, God's gift to wrestling, is also getting his wages garnished by the IRS because he owes the federal government millions of dollars. And if you don't believe me, read his book. He was very honest in his book.
So you got in for your father, and it was a lot harder to get back in when you get into the business when you started. Do you think it's too easy to get in the business now for a lot of these young guys that really never made it in the past?
I think just the opposite. I don't think it's very easy at all. It was easy for me.
I don't mean to make money in it, but to say that you were a wrestler, because when you were first starting, it would be hard to say that you're a wrestler. You would have had to go through some punishment and kind of prove you had a strong will before you could go around telling people you were a wrestler. And now kind of anyone that pays their $3,000 can do it.
Well, here's the thing. I didn't care about telling people that I was a wrestler. I cared about telling myself that I was a wrestler, that I had finally made it from the ringside seat to the wrestling ring, to the lights. And truthfully, I would have rather been a baseball player, but I had a little trouble with the hit, run, throw, field, think aspect of it. And since they don't love you, they just take a number 2 pencil and cross your name off the list. I didn't make it in baseball after giving baseball quite a lot of my life. And they start, okay, yes, $3,000 for a wrestling school. First of all, the number 1 rule in training a dog: you have to know more than the dog, stupid. See, you cannot train a dog unless you know more than the dog. So if you're going to go to a wrestling school, ask yourself a question: who's teaching? Is he any good? Or is he just want my $3,000? And it isn't always $3,000. Magnum Ta,
Yeah.
who would have been one of the greatest wrestlers ever, unfortunately, he had a Porsche and he took a turn on a wet road, and I wasn't there. But the poor guy broke his neck and never made it again. And he would have been one of the greatest. I mean, it was all set for him, and he deserved it. But we take things for granted, and there's your brain, there's your brainstem, there's your medulla oblongata, and there's 100 miracles that happen just to get out of this van and to get into the ring and to do anything. These are motor signals. We take them for granted. They are not to be taken for granted. Once you lose them, you're done. You're toast. And he is toast. And the guy that trained him was Buzz Sawyer, who's on that laundry list of wrestlers that have died young. And they got him for $30,000. $30,000. His parents refinanced their home so Magnum Ta could become a wrestler. For that lowlife drug addict to take $30,000 away, well, a fool and his money are soon parted. Was it worth it for Magnum to get into the business for $30,000? In his case, yes, because he made it. He made it big and would have got to the very top had it not been for a Porsche that cost more than $30,000. So who's to say? Now, all I'm saying is, as a second generation wrestler, I had advantages that a lot of the dreamers and schemers don't have. And I never forgot that when you talk about Angelo Poffo, if anybody remembers my name, it will be because of his.
So for the time that you were in WWE, were you paid pretty well?
Yes, I did very well. I was making each year between $75,000 and $150,000 per year. And of course, my best year was 1989 and the beginning of 1990, when I was the nemesis of the great Hulk Hogan. And even though that was 21 years ago, approximately, I don't want to go up to Hulk Hogan and say, "What have you done for me lately?" No, that was enough for a lifetime. Thank you very much. Hulk Hogan took a jabroni and made him a star. And I drank from the silver chalice of success for one brief shining moment. Ask me if it was worth it. It was worth it.
And so you made the most money in that year, probably. So what's it like going from wrestling Hulk Hogan in the main event on NBC, Saturday Night Main Event, to now you're doing small shows like this one? Are they still fun for you?
Yes.
Or?
If it weren't fun, I wouldn't do it. As a matter of fact, I wrestled in the Maritimes in 1978, fell in love with the place. Came back in 1983. I only have one bitter memory. But I have a beautiful daughter. I got married in Moncton, New Brunswick. Emil Dupre was my best man. His wife, Paula, was also representing. And Renee Dupre was gestating in Mama's belly at the time. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I don't really know him. The first time I ever met him was in Mentz, Nancy, France.
After 500 meters, turn left. Then, at the end of the road,
Oh, can you turn the sound off on that?
I met him in Metz, Nancy, France. And I can't say I really know him, but I do know Emil Dupre. And I love him very much. Very nice man. He treated me very well.
I do remember this has nothing to do with the video, but he was grateful to you because I lived with him in England, because
At the end of the road,
you helped him
turn
get
right.
signed because you contacted Molly Holly or something.
Yeah, it was Emil Dupre called me on the phone and said, holy Jesus Christ, Lenny, I got a boy that's 6'4". And first of all, let me tell you about 6'4". If he's standing on a phone book, he isn't 6'4".
No.
You know, there's a lot of people claim 6'4". They ain't 6'4".
No.
You know. So anyway, there's only three heights. There's not tall enough, and Andre the Giant. So, you know, there you go. Anyway, he said, I tell you what, I'll send you a tape, and if you like it, see what you can do. And I saw the tape. I liked it. But I realized there was nothing I could do. I only had one connection, and that was Nora Greenwald, my very dear friend, Molly Holly. And I said, look, I'm not telling you what to do this tape. I just want you to look at it. If you think he's got anything that you don't want to be ashamed being seen with, go ahead and give it to the powers that be, because I was no longer in the clique. And she saw the tape, thought he was good, took it to whomever. I think it was Laurinaitis.
Yeah.
Is that the guy that was...
He was Howard.
And next thing you know, one step leads to another. And then I heard some story about some rental car and he got beat up and all of this stuff. You know, I wasn't there.
He
Who
was
knows?
deserving from the real reason.
Well,
The real reason is bigger than the reason that he says. Because
Okay.
Hardcore Holly he got speeding tickets on the rental car, and Hardcore Holly actually had to go back to the town, fly there on his own money, and fight it in court to say he wasn't the one driving the car.
well, what I heard was something as benign as, look, would you fill the rental car up with gas before you take it in? Otherwise, they'll charge you 3 times that's how they get you.
Yeah.
And what I heard was he showed no humility when confronted and said something to the effect of, if it's that important, why didn't you fill it up? Wrong answer. And then I guess he did several flying headbutts into Holly's fist
Yeah.
or whatever. And evidently, in this business, if you lack humility, somebody might teach you something. So that's all there is to it.
So here's kind of a question for you. Everyone kind of thinks wrestlers are all friends in the back. And if you watch the movie, The Wrestler makes it look like we're all one big happy family. In your opinion, is it like that, or is it very political backstage?
Well, it's human nature to form cliques, okay? So there's certain factions, certain cliques that are going to form. Anytime you have all that humanity together, there's going to be cliques. And if there's cliques, if anybody gets a break, there's going to be some jealousy. When I was Leaping Lanny in the World Wrestling Federation, I was the most popular guy there. Every time a heel came in with the intention of working for Hulk Hogan, they would give him to me because you can't look good unless you beat somebody good. But as soon as I got my break, I was no longer the most popular person. I remember that in Topeka, Kansas, when I wrestled Hulk Hogan, Ravishing Rick Rude came up to me, all muscles ablazing, and he says, right in front of everybody, are you only getting this break because your brother is the Macho Man? And I said, yes. Didn't you know that? And everybody laughed. I took the bullets out of his gun. So, yeah, there's it's politics, it's breaks, and sometimes the politics has worked against me, and sometimes it's worked in my favor. In the meantime, am I not appreciative to be here? I am more appreciative to be here than anything, because I'm almost 56 years old, and I love wrestling. And I realize that every match might be my last, and maybe, like so many athletes like Babe Ruth and people that didn't know when to quit, lads that have worn their honors out, perhaps I'm not worthy of a wrestling fan buying a wrestling ticket. And the day will come when I have to hang them up. But till that day, What's that?
Hang up the jeans.
Yeah, hang up the jeans. Well, they lost my luggage, so I'm gonna have to wear jeans. But the until that day happens, I'm gonna enjoy every minute of this. I'm just while we're talking, I'm looking out the window and I'm drinking it in because where I'm come from, Florida, you have people that have never been out of the town or out of the state, and here I am taking advantage of all the scenery and the beautiful wilderness that we're in. And there are some wrestlers that don't even know what I'm talking about because all they ever saw was the inside of a hotel room, the inside of a bar room, the inside of a locker room, and the inside of an arena. They might as well not even go anywhere because they don't appreciate what they got.
Now, you've told me this story before, but one guy that was kind of spoiled in wrestling was Bam Bigelow. He didn't have had everything like thrown behind him, big push when he first came into WWE, and he was taking advantage of you in some of the matches that you had with him when you were going out there trying to make him look good. So could you kind of tell that story?
Okay. Bam Bigelow came in, and I could tell he was an arrogant fat guy. You know, like, man, you know, he had that thing. And I'm just not impressed. I've seen too many of it. I've seen it all. To me, he was an ugly fat man. Okay. And
nobody likes fat people.
No, it's not. It's not that. It's that. It's that I don't think he had much to be. I mean, Rene Dupre at least had something to be arrogant about.
Yeah.
Bam Bigelow does not have much to be arrogant about. And I hate to speak ill of the dead, but everybody's dead. So, I mean, if you just want to talk about the wrestlers that I know that are alive, we don't, you know, what are we going to do for the rest of the time? You know, because there's only like 3 of us left. So, Bam never took advantage of me. It's just that he never thanked me. He was horrible. He sucked. I mean, he was, if I was a wrestling fan, there's not a way in the world I would pay money to see a guy like that. I would pay to see a lot of the guys. I mean, some of the guys had real talent. And so then we're in Boston, Massachusetts, and you can bleep this out later, but he was so proud of himself, he says, "Hey, I just got a blowjob from an arena rat." Well, that offends me on many levels. I never thought I was better than an arena rat. As a matter of fact, I love arena rats. Arena rats, I don't call them that. I mean, I'm just saying it because, or the Canadian wrestlers call them rink rats. I don't call them that. They're human beings. And if you treat them really nice, they'll do a lot of things for you, including drive you to the airport, do your laundry, odd jobs. And I've always depended on the kindness of strangers. But whenever I've been with an arena rat, I've always done my best to try to make them feel better about themselves than before they met me. And I would never go into a dressing room bragging about some sexual favor that I received, because in my opinion, a person's reputation is all they have, and we should honor that. And if somebody, it's like what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. What happens in the locker room should stay in the locker room. Anyway, he comes in bragging about some blowjob he got from an arena rat. So he said it in front of about 15 people in the Boston Garden. So I stood up and I said, "Did you keep the receipt?" And he said, "What? What do you mean?" I said, "You are a very ugly man. If you got a blowjob from an arena rat, I imagine you must have paid her. I hope you paid her something." He says, "Why? What do you want?" And he bowed up and ready to fight me. And I said, "Vince McMahon isn't here to see that I lose this time, fat bastard. And by the way, say goodbye to your knees." And he sat down, and the boys all laughed at him because by that time he had alienated everybody in the place. And Andre the Giant in Madison Square Garden beat the hell out of him. And as usual, the fans didn't understand it, so they all went for popcorn. In other words, who really got beat was the fans that expected a great match and instead saw
The shoot fight can be more boring than a wrestling
Well,
match a lot of the time.
Oh, yeah, shoot fights are always boring, aren't they? Unless they're exciting, which are very rare.
The highlight reels are exciting.
You know, I
That's
mean,
about it.
the fans didn't pay to see that. They didn't understand that. They went to the popcorn, you know, and it was like, they even booed it, boo. But it was basically Andre just covering Bam Bam like a blanket. And that's alliteration for those of you that are into it. Anyway, don't know what it means, look it up. Okay.
Which I don't.
Okay. Bam Bam blanket, 3 words that start with B. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. And why that's interesting is when I first got with Mr. Perfect, I get a call from Howard Finkel. He says, we're going to do 6 vignettes. One of them is going to be with Mr. Perfect, the ping pong, diving, golf. I can't remember the others. Whatever. But the horseshoes, yes.
Bowling.
I wasn't in there for the bowling one. I think they did about 30 takes for him to get 12 strikes. But
He was soaked by the end. His shirt was completely wet.
yeah.
As you see him doing them, his shirt just.
And then when we were on Regis Philbin, he refused to do bowling with Regis because it's live TV. And he took that perfect gimmick seriously. So Mr. Perfect, Regis Philbin came over to me and says, Lanny, what the hell's going on with your partner? He doesn't want to do the bowling with me. I got half a mind to send you guys out. I said, first of all, he's not my partner. They put us together. Secondly, what probably is the problem is he's Mr. Perfect and he expects to get a strike. It's a lot easier to do it when there's post-production editing than on live television, you know. So I said, he doesn't want to get a non-strike. So that would kill his gimmick. Actually, what killed his gimmick is not bowling. What killed his gimmick is cocaine. Okay, I'm just saying it. Now, people say, well, how can you speak ill of the dead? The dead are dead. I'm trying to stop somebody still alive from making a stupid choice like he made. Is that all right? You know, at least he can't learn from his own mistakes. But I'm hoping if anybody listens to this, they might learn from his mistakes.
Speaking of cocaine, can you tell us just how common the drugs were in the 80s in the dressing rooms and in the partying after? Because I know there was a lot of drugs flying around.
I came in there in June of 1985, and there was cocaine and steroids were abundant. And I can truthfully say that I've never smoked a cigarette, marijuana, or tobacco. I've never taken a drug, aspirin or otherwise, up until February of 1989, when I got the gimmick as the genius, and I got about a month off. I grew my hair out, grew a beard, colored some of it in with some Crayola. I'm not, you know, it's not that easy to grow a beard. And now if I try to do it, it'd be all silvery.
You had to find one, which I keep asking you to grow back.
Well, I tell you what, I tried to.
Okay.
I wanted to surprise you, but I look so bad. Oh, God, it looked bad. Silvery, you know, and it's hard enough to get girls as it is anymore, and I don't pay. I have never lost my amateur standing. But I got on decadurabolin, which is a steroid, and it was known as one of the clean steroids. Well, that's an oxymoron. There's no such thing as a clean steroid. So I got on decadurabolin, and then when I came to the my first shot, I took my shirt off, and I'd been in the sunbed, and took my shirt off, oiled up, and everybody said, "Holy, what the hell happened to you?" And never mind, we know what happened. Whoa! And everybody said, "Look at Lanny's muscles," and everybody came in the room, and then.
That was a good feeling.
That was a good feeling to get the, you know, and trust me, we had the warlord and barbarian flipping over me, and that's like ridiculous because.
Not to mention the sexual aspects of the steroid.
The sexual aspects? Well, but what happened was after the Hulk Hogan match was Halloween of 1989, I realized that I had gone to the very top and I was not going to live there. I was just going to, like Monopoly game, in jail or just visiting. I was just visiting. And I took a shower, looked down at myself, and I saw my testicular atrophy. And I thought to myself, it might be a good idea to cut my losses right now. And I pulled out that needle, and within 2 months, my muscles were all gone, and my sexual libido was taking a slump. But I was married at the time, so it made absolutely no difference at all.
So, were you married when you were taking steroids?
Yes.
And what did your wife think of that? She enjoyed the.
She was the one that was shooting me with it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she was the one injecting me. So I don't know what she was thinking while she was injecting me, but I think we had pretty much worn out our welcome with one another, and she was out for what she could get and didn't care if she doped me up to get it. So, but I don't want this to turn out to be a negative thing. Let's look at it this way. I handled my situation much more amicably and civilized than Chris Benoit.
Were you faithful to your wife on the road? You don't have to answer it.
Was I faithful to my wife on the road? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I got as much pussy as I possibly could get because I certainly wasn't getting any at home.
Right. So,
but besides, people say, but it was meaningless sex. No, it was more meaningful to me with strangers than it was for people that I know. And I don't mean to be cynical. It's just the way it is. There's something great about a stranger. Sex with a stranger has a bad rep. It's the best thing in the world.
And one other question, you don't have to say yes or no, but you can address this. Hogan was on, I'm sure you know the rumor about you. You don't have to answer this, but you can make a comment about it. Hogan was on Howard Stern talking about it. And what do you think of this rumor that always goes around? But it's not in a negative way. It's almost like when they talk about it, you're like, it's one of the legends of wrestling that no one really knows if it's true or not, but it's talked about an awful lot.
Thank you for asking, and it's 100% true. So, and actually, I was on Sirius Radio, I don't know who for, but they asked me after the Hulk Hogan said that, I said, well, let me ask you a question. Can you do it? The guy says, no, I can't do it. And I said, well, the fact that you know that you cannot proves that you've tried. And that's all I got to say about that. The other thing is, actually, here's the situation. In 1976, I went to wrestle for Charlotte, North Carolina. And there was a girl there who was the most gorgeous girl, ring rat, I've ever seen. And her, I could tell you her name because she was memorable. But keep in mind that I was still a young man in an old man's game, and I thought I was scoring. It turns out she had been with everybody. Not everybody, but mostly the top guys, because she was prime fillet in Raleigh, North Carolina, and that was the pussy capital of the world at the time. Me, I was a little bit of a oversensitive boy with a bad complexion, and she had commented favorably. She had asked for me, and she was beautiful enough to get anybody she wanted. I couldn't believe she wanted me, so she made me a little compliment about certain gifts that I possess, and I said, well, what do you, so I did it for her. Well, the very next day, everybody knew that. My size, my stuff, everything, my junk, the whole thing, everything was out in the open. And then Blackjack Mulligan brings me into the shower. He says, Lanny, I got a question for you. And I said...
And Blackjack Mulligan was an agent, just if you want.
Blackjack Mulligan was the top heel Ric Flair, Blackjack Mulligan, and Angelo Mosca. Blackjack Lanza was an agent.
Okay.
Blackjack Mulligan was his partner. He says, Lanny, I got a question. I know you were with Skinny Lynn. He says, did you suck your own deal? And I said, yes. He says, can you show me that? I want to see that. So I said, sure. Boom. And he says, Lanny, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. And many years later, I don't remember the year, 1990 something, him and his son are arrested for a counterfeit scheme, and they plead bargain for 2 years. So when you're pointing a finger, there's 3 fingers pointing back at you. Now, if you think I'm a pervert because I suck my own dick, just remember this. I didn't do it in Macy's window. I did it in the locker room twice in my life, and the legend grew from there. The other thing is, I didn't do it like Lance Rensel of the LA Rams. He exposed himself to a 10-year-old girl. If I had done it on the playground, now you got something. But I did it in a locker room. And what happens in a locker room should have stayed in a locker room. But since it didn't, I say go fuck yourselves. Now tell me the truth. Have you ever heard of the limerick, the man from Nantucket?
I've heard the rhyme, but not the limerick. What is it?
There once was a man from Nantucket. His dick was so long he could suck it. He said with a grin as he wiped off his chin, if my ear were a cunt, I would fuck it.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please help me out and like this video, then click the subscribe and get notifications buttons so you don't miss any of my latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Follow us on Facebook at The Hannibal TV for more live streams and videos. And while you're at it, follow us on Instagram and Twitter at The Hannibal TV.